Are we ready, Anna? Her finger is up, her thumb is up. My face is matching 650 nanometers and the color of my tie thanks to the beautiful sun we are having here in the Netherlands and almost all over Europe. Today we are global and we are talking about my favorite topic in photonics. We are talking about VCSELs. You probably know me by now. You know how crazy I get when anyone speaks about VCSELs, vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. Because this is one of the biggest things to ever happen in photonics so far, and you can quote me on that. But what's next? I believe it is time to rethink the goal of the VCSEL roadmap, and here's why. Suppose we add functionality to today's VCSELs, like the ability to tune its wavelength or direct the optical beam. Remember, the VCSEL itself as a light source is very low cost, but things around the light source are still relatively expensive and bulky. So, to progress, we need further integration of components around the VCSEL at the size ratio and price of the VCSEL itself. And I am talking about MEMS and micro optics. The plan of being able to have beam steering and beam scanning VCSELs, now that's fantastic! Because it is a way of adding another layer of functionality to serve the customer, who is always price and size conscious. These ideas extend to other businesses that could take further advantages of VCSELs, because this is an economic way to produce light sources with a very precise, tunable wavelength. Take personalized healthcare, where smarter VCSELs could mean the ability to improve the clinical quality of sensors in a wearable or a health patch, or even in the next generation mobile phones. Because VCSELs only cost a few cents, put them in an array and you can make very low cost but highly effective spectrometers. When we think of wearables at this moment, we think of smart clothing with sensors, but using VCSELs would take things to the next level, allowing the wearable not only to sense its surroundings, but also see them in 3D. Companies like Prophecy are in the lab exploring the possibilities. This opens so many doors to help those with less than ideal vision. And imagine the impact on personal mobility when this kind of technology is coupled to a self-driving vehicle. But to move faster, we need to switch our current thinking around. Instead of regarding a VCSEL as a light source to another system, suppose the VCSEL became the platform on which to integrate other things at low price and high volume. So how do we persuade VCSEL manufacturers Lumentum, 26, Osram, AMS, Vertilas, Bandwidth 10, VI Systems, then what we need is a much more efficient, smart optical platform, because a VCSEL is so much more than just a cheap light source. That's my vision. On Monday, June 7th, I'd like to invite those companies with a vision on the future of VCSELs to contribute to a focused discussion on what's next. Sign up now to access the EPIC Zoom room, because thousands of brilliant minds in the EPIC network can accelerate the path to what's possible. Welcome everyone and good afternoon. The VCSELs being a platform for photonics is my personal vision, not necessarily the one of EPIC members, but in the next 2 hours and with the speakers that were selected by Dr. Ana Gonzalez, I think we're going to have a very clear picture on how to work together. My name is Jose Pozo. I'm the CTO of EPIC, Chief Technology Observer. EPIC has now a lot of members. We are a family of 700 plus members. All the companies here in this slide are very well known by us. What makes a difference to the EPIC staff is that we know every company, we know every member of EPIC truthfully, to make sure that we're connecting with the potential suppliers, partners, and customers. We organize events, we provide access to the network, we help you raise capital. We have the biggest website to find a job in photonics in the world, jobsinphotonics.com, and every EPIC member has access to a long list of market reports, all of them for you, just as part of the EPIC membership benefits. We are almost at the end of the season 4 of online technology meetings. Season 4, all the seasons were through the pandemic. Pay special attention to the meeting that we have in a couple of weeks on microscopy. We are actually collecting some of the key companies to actually find potential collaboration in a business that is growing at the moment. But today is VCSEL. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge the support of our media partner today, Electro Optics. Thank you very much for being such a fantastic partner of Epic. But today, this meeting wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors. And we start with ficonTEC, all the way from Aachen, Bremen, Germany. It's important to mention them for all they do in the testing of mixers, thanks to the multi-channel probe lead technology for batch parallel mix signal test and quality operation, but also fibeReality, the leading technology consultancy company. You are developing business in VCSELs or in photonics in general, you should speak to fibeReality. Also pay special attention on their fantastic blog, VIGO Systems, all the way from Poland, from Warsaw. The 3.5 epitaxy division of VIGO Systems provides epi wafers for custom and niche VCSEL applications. But bandwidth 10, if you're looking for a VCSEL between 720 nanometers to 1.7 microns, these people provide the fantastic VCSEL for time of flight or for any kind of 3D sensing technologies. All the way from Singapore, we have Focusz. Focusz is a very well-known contract manufacturing for optoelectronic, providing high volume and low cost as well as high quality services. Phix in the Netherlands, the European OSAT, optical semiconductor assembly technologies in the Netherlands, providing packaging services and testing services, photonic integration. AEMTec, you're looking for a partner to do the packaging, but also to do the back end, to think packaging and backend at the same time, because sometimes you need wafer thinning and sometimes you need wire bonding at the same time. AEMTec is your key partner for packaging when you also need backend services. And finally, last but definitely not least, a company everybody's talking about, NIL Technology, a new micro-optic manufacturer based on e-beam lithography of making the mold, and then nano-imprint lithography of making volume production of high-end nano optics, not micro optics, nano optics. And a person who knows nanotechnology and who knows photonics and who's made a difference in the growth of Epic is my very good friend, Doctora Ana Gonzalez. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, Jose. Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And yes, we have a very nice meeting in front of us today. Here you can see the agenda. We managed to bring one of the top market leaders manufacturing VCSELs, and they are going to talk about the last developments, also about what are the challenges for the supply chain that will be today here. And if you can go to them, yes, here we have an amazing supply chain. So we have the companies offering epi wafer, companies offering coatings, filters, micro optics, laser technology, photonic integrated circuits, all the manufacturing and packaging, testing services, well, everything that they could need. And also, last but not least, I would like to mention the European projects, the European initiatives with which we are collaborating. First of all, Passion is developing an entire infrastructure for a metro network. So yes, they integrate VCSELs with silicon photonics to do a very interesting transceivers. Also, we have Phix for packaging and assembly of photonic integrated circuits. Also, we have Jacek. If you are interested in going to pilot production for indium phosphide photonic integrated circuits, Jacek has now an open call available, so contact us for more information. And finally, Photon Hub. So if you are a company trying to develop a new product using photonic technologies, Photon Hub can help you with the expertise, but also with financial support and with training. And that's it, Jose.
Anna, what an amazing job you have done. These are all the companies who register for the meeting today on VCSELs. If you want to get in touch with any of them, they are here looking for partners. This is a unique opportunity. Ana, buen trabajo. And this meeting is also live streamed in YouTube. So hello, YouTubers. Thank you for joining from YouTube. You can remain anonymous because people in the Zoom room has to be very active. You can remain quiet, but you want to get in touch with any of the participants today and you have a good business case for them, host.pozo@epic-asoc.com. I would love to make that connection. And let's get the meeting started. We had a really strong challenge today because we had some of the top manufacturers worldwide in VCSELs. So who should open the meeting? Actually, I would tell you that it was a coin toss, but it wasn't. We really wanted TRUMPF to start the meeting today for many reasons. But first, because it's a European success story. A family-oriented business that is driving innovation worldwide in lasers for manufacturing, but also in vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. Joseph Pankert, thank you very much for taking the role of opening our VCSEL event of the year. The floor and the attention of everyone goes to TRUMPF. Joseph, good afternoon. Joseph Pankert from TRUMPF. We make this meeting live, so we always are prepared for this. Joseph, I don't think we can hear you because maybe you are muted, and I do have a Mac to celebrate such accomplishment. So, Joseph, we still can't hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, all the way from Aachen, right? In Germany, the floor is yours.
So, and can you see my slide now?
Yes, if you go to slideshow mode, we will see it with the quality it deserves. Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much, Jose. My name is Joseph Pankert, and it's a great pleasure to open this meeting. For those who have met me before, and a few of the participants, I'm sure are friends and old colleagues. I've been managing this company for quite some time when it was Philips Photonics, and in 2019 we were really luckily acquired by a very renowned laser company, which is TRUMPF. And TRUMPF is switching gears now on this, and I happily went back to my passion, which is technology, and handed over the general managementship to Bertolt Schmidt, which many of you know. So today is really a privilege to talk about manufacturing and applications about VCSELs, which actually is a topic as broad as to cover a full conference. So what I try to do is to give you just 3 slides. One is on the challenges that we are facing today as we speak. The second one is on the challenges that we are facing tomorrow, and tomorrow has begun already today. And the third one is, well, the challenges that we see coming along if we really want to take the full potential of the VCSEL opportunities. And it's going to be a pleasure to invite all of you to be part of that story. So the challenge we are facing today, it's in one single word, is process control. We, as TRUMPF and previously Philips, we have shipped close to 2 billion VCSELs, and largely without any field returns. So we have done single and multi-mode, we have done all kinds of wavelengths. When it comes to arrays, we have done small, large, regular, irregular, addressable, non-addressable, high-speed datacom. And you can see a couple of examples on the left side. So the top left is a densely packed single mode with 16 micrometer pitch, and a random pattern, and the 56G datacom chip that we have released recently, and addressable chips. Now, if you look at where is the challenge and where is the money today? Actually, we're spending 20% of the money to make a VCSEL we spent on the epi, and that's adding value. We're spending 40% of the money in front-end processing, so litho, etching, and so on and so on. That's adding value. But then another 14% has to be spent on testing and qualifying, and this is just adding cost. So here's the invitation. So if anyone can help us to reduce what we consider as adding cost. So compositional control in the epi, dimensional control in the full inch 6-inch wafer or 4-inch wafer processing. So that's decisive for the yield. And then finally, we have to do testing. We can't get rid of testing, but then if you can help us to reduce and to speed up the testing, it's going to bring us major steps forward. That brings me to the next slide. And the next slide is the challenges we are facing tomorrow as a community. And I would call this functional integration, a concept that is, of course, well known in the silicon industry, called Moore's law in that context, because you're putting more and more function on the same chip. The same is happening actually in the VCSEL. The gallium arsenide platform that we are using is good for making lasers. These are the VCSELs. It's good for making LEDs. It's good for making photodiodes. It's good for making transistors or phototransistors, but also a lot of passive optical elements like lenses, polarization gratings, diffusers, waveguides, and finally also skip scale packaging devices. Again, on the left side, you can see a flip chip datacom device where you can see that on the top left, we have even integrated collimating lenses on the back side just for fiber coupling, polarization grating, which is implemented on the facet of a laser. And on the lower side, you can see some backside optics in a flip chip device where you can do a kind of scanning. So it's a fan out structure, and finally also the bumping and mounting devices. Now the challenges where you can contribute to is really that Well, if you integrate additional functions, then it's again about process control, which is very important and remains important. But it's also the increased complexity. We are easily doubling or tripling the number of masks that we are employing. And if you have so many functions on the same chip, then there's just no way you can do this just by hand waving design rules. But what we need is design rules for the manufacturing, but also for the device properties and a whole bunch of modeling. If we compare ourselves to where the silicon industry is, then of course we are 3 decades running behind, and we have to close that gap in order to make full use of the potential of these additional functions that we put onto the same chip, as was, by the way, also referred to in the introduction slides of Jose. And that brings me to the final one, and the final one is the next challenge that keeps us busy for the next couple of years, I would say. So extend and create new applications. And that's, again, an open invitation. I'll give you one example of something which we hadn't on our roadmap a couple of years ago, but then all of a sudden we discovered that if you do with a VCSEL face recognition or proximity sensing, then of course you can also detect PM.5 particles, so very fine dust particles, which is very important for environmental health. And together with our partner Bosch SensorTech, we have developed a sensor, which you can see on the upper left side, 3 millimeters in size, so very, very compact. It consists of 3 VCSELs, and the detection principle is such that the VCSEL sends out light that is back reflected then from the particles. That back reflected light is coherently interfering with the laser itself. That's what we call self-mixing interference. Then in the lasers, we have integrated the photodiode. So that's a piece of functional integration already. And then we detect the change of the laser light and thereby detect also the presence of a particle and even the speed of a particle. And then we have to do some clever signal processing that generates a PM.5 value. That sensor is very, very compact, and it does not require any venting holes. And it just, for the purpose of this meeting, is an example of where, from a very unexpected angle, we got a new application, which hopefully will eventually be a broad scale applied sensor that you can find everywhere where you take care about the environmental quality of your air. So that brings me to the last sentence. So the challenge for the EPIC community is really invent, invent, invent. Come up with new inventions, come up with new applications, because I believe that we have tapped only a fraction of what VCSELs can do for all of us. And with having said this, I thank you for listening, and I'm happy to engage with all of you to excel in manufacturing on the one side, and the second topic was the application. So come up with new ideas, and we are happy to support this with new VCSEL technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Super great presentation. We liked very much. Maybe I would like to ask you to summarize, maybe maybe to elaborate a little bit more about the challenges that you presented at the beginning. You know, about how to improve the testing and the other challenges. Maybe you could summarize for our companies here in Zoom.
Well, the testing, of course, is very broad. We have optical testing for the integrity of the chips, for defects that we have to test. We have the full electro-optical testing, which is usually 100% testing. But then we have also qualification of the wafers, where we take samples, and that sample testing is destructive testing. And especially the reliability testing in the field of datacom. That's very challenging, very demanding, and it takes an awful long of time, because we need to build up a database. We need to demonstrate that the devices are lasting very, very long. And anything that can help us to shorten that testing, to have more clever ways of building up that statistical base, to do on-wafer testing as much as we can, will greatly reduce the time to market of new ones, but is also reducing the cost that we have to incur. So it's really a full bunch of testing that starts with inline testing during production, and it starts with the EPI. Once you don't do the EPI the correct way, you have hardly any way to repair this further downstream. So anything which helps making a good start at the processing is welcome, all the way up until testing of the optical properties, for instance.
Okay, thank you. We have a few companies in this meeting, such as ficonTEC. I am sure they can comment later about this. Right now, we have already one question in the chat, well, more than one. Let's go to Dieter from WhatsApp Photonics. Dieter, would you like to make this question by yourself?
Hi, thanks for calling me. I come from the Raman spectroscopy side, and VCSELs would be just perfect light sources for portable Raman, if and only if their bandwidth could be shrunk a little bit. I think they're on the order of a nanometer, and if they could go to 0.3 or a nanometer or below, at any wavelength around 800 nanometer, give or take 30 nanometers or something, that would be just that would just be a perfect match for portable Raman spectroscopy. And I was just wondering, is that possible?
I do believe it's possible. So if you just send your wish specification, I'll certainly connect to the experts. And as a matter of fact, we have been discussing that application a couple of years ago, but it was probably too early in the development. But it's definitely possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I also think it's possible.
Looking forward to receiving your email. So.
Yes, I'm sure you can talk later, okay, further about this. Now we have Domenico from Photon Design. I see you raise your hand. How are you doing, Domenico?
Yes. Hi, Hannah. Yes, yeah, my question, Joseph, you mentioned that, so we model VCSELs, and so I was very curious that you mentioned that you need much better modeling to manage the complexity that your VCSELs now have. Can you elaborate on what do you see the challenges still for on the modeling side? What are you looking for?
Well, it's really the full spectrum, yeah. So I don't expect we can do all in one model, but it's really the spectrum of starting with the model of the EPI, of course, be it for high speed, be it for short pulses, be it for high efficiency. So there are all kind of design freedom that we have. But then if you have a look at the pictures that I show here, then of course there's a lot of optical modeling that is also very necessary. So the amount of modes that we have in a laser, the behavior of the modes along a pulse train that is sent to the VCSEL, polarization control, as you see, mode control. So there's a lot of publications also on controlling the modes. I'll give you an example. So if you want to have single mode lasers, then of course the way we do it is to have a very narrow oxidation aperture, and then it's becoming single mode automatically with a number of challenges that come along, and all of that is partly covered by the models. Many of them are self-made, but I think time is there to have more professional modeling platforms on which we can predict the properties of the optical properties, but also the electrical properties of the lasers. So it's really the full spectrum of all the properties that we need to model. And we have quite some own modeling activities, mostly in cooperation with institutes, but we are not at the position as the silicon industry would be, where you have professional companies just focusing on modeling. And everyone is using that.
Well, it'd be interesting to talk to your colleagues later.
Yes,
I'd be very happy to. I mean, we Photon Design, we can't do everything, but a number of things that you raised, I think, are already problems that we've solved.
Okay,
just
so
another example, the lower left one is the bumping and mounting. There, of course, the thermomechanical model, they are really very important, but those ones are commercially available pretty easy. So that's one of the areas where we are pretty well covered, but nevertheless an important topic.
Okay, I'm sure that the Photon Design software can help you do all these challenges. So I'm sure you can have a talk later. Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Then maybe Mark, you also have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question for Joseph. Can you talk at all about how many of your shipments are 1,000 nanometers and higher, and do they tend to stay more towards 1,000 than the 1,300, given the difficulties that go to 1,300 right now?
Well, I think if you look at the worldwide shipments, so not the TRUMPF shipments only, then the bulk of all the shipments is 940 that goes into smartphones, and that applies also for us. And the second biggest volume is 850 nanometers that goes into datacom applications. These are the two driving applications. But what we see is that the field is opening up widely. There's recently, of course, a lot of question and rumors about even longer wavelengths, but we have seen in specialty applications also shorter ones, like in oxygen sensing. And I do believe that we'll see, along with additional applications, we'll see the full spectrum of all wavelengths coming. Also in datacom, where people are talking about different wavelengths that you're using for CWDM applications. But historically, the bulk is 940 and 850.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question. So Wilfred from SUS Micro Optics, would you like to make the question by yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Anna, for letting me ask this question right here. So very impressive again, this VCSEL business. I'm like Jose, it's really fascinating to see what's going on there. You showed in your last slide the PM 2.5 application. So this is clearly a new application compared to the other bulk of application that you mentioned earlier in data, telecom or datacom mostly, and 3D sensing. So from what I think, there are more commercial challenges than technological challenges for bringing PM 2.5 with VCSELs to the market. Is that a correct assessment, or what is your experience there?
Yes. I mean, it's always a question on whether let's say the take rate or the acceptance of a new sensor principle is widely accepted by the market. And what is of course very clear is that sensing functions will largely increase, because sensors are in general the interface between the analog and the digital world. And environmental sensing is also something which will definitely increase. The question is on whether that specific form factor, which is very, very compact, whether this is necessary for most of the applications, or whether you can do with a more traditional and conventional one. At the end of the day, my personal experience, once you can do things very compact and you integrate, that eventually it will be taken. And that's what we expect for this sensor as well. It's from a performance point of view, it's just matching bulky standard PM 2.5 sensors. So there's, from performance point of view, this is perfect. But of course, it's not. Yeah. It's a little bit more expensive here. So that's
yeah. That's my experience. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for this. Now I see Iwan from IQE. Iwan, hello, how are you doing?
Hi, Anna, I'm doing very, very well, thank you. Nice to be part of this excellent meeting. I have one question for Josef. Josef, hi.
Hi.
When you mentioned the role that the EPI manufacturer has to play in VCSEL manufacturing, what are the sort of things that you like? I can understand you said about the improved uniformities and compositional control and so on. What else would you like to see from the EPI manufacturers then, if you are looking for improved yield on the device manufacturer's end? Is it some aspect of the performance of the wafer that is more related to the device performance, other than, say, the materials characterization provided by the EPI provider?
Well, you know where we're coming from. It's that we order EPI to, and I'm talking about dark history, of course. We order EPI, or we make EPI, and then we specify the basic parameters of the EPI, be it compositional properties and then the dimensional properties, and then at the end of the VCSEL processing, you discover whether the EPI has been okay or not. And of course, we have come a long way, so we can much better characterize whether the EPI is really what it should be, and that is first of all finding the right metrology, and we have even cooperated many years in defining better and better metrology, but then also controlling your equipment, Because what I say is, if there's any inhomogeneity or any mistake or whatever in the epi, it's impossible to repair afterwards. And sometimes we only discover when we do the final qualification. And that's, of course, something where we clearly would expect that we improve, and we continuously improve the quality of the epi, and also the metrology, just to decide after the epi growth on whether it's a good epi or not, just to avoid that we are adding value and adding cost afterwards and have to for no good reason. That's one. The second one is, yes, well, as you see that there's a request for widening the wavelength that we have to supply for pixels, and this is very, very much, of course, an epi question. So we have done the 1300 nanometers for many years, and we know what the challenges are around that. But there is certainly an area where epi can contribute big times.
Yes,
Joseph, I would like to congratulate you on the fantastic presentation that
Yeah.
you gave, but I'm not ready to let you go yet. I want to come back to this slide. And the reason why I want to come back to this slide is because you say that the challenge is in process control. And you talk here about impossible to repair mistakes, which I understand, but defining the yield, and the target is to speed up the testing. I know that Anna already asked you to comment on the testing parts, but I would like to retake that. We are talking about colorimetry, and we are talking about wavelength tracking. What kind of testing do you need to perform during process control? Do you do a PL measurement? Or could you tell us a little bit about this? Because I would like some EPIC members to help TRUMPF.
For the epi or what you,
Yes.
for the device testing, you mean?
The process control from the epi and also afterwards for the device testing. So both.
Well, it's the
and then
full
we'll match
spectrum. I
it to
mean,
companies.
we all know it's SIMS measurement, it's TEM measurement, it's depending on what you do, is Röntgen diffractometry, it's PL measurement, it's probably not exhaustive, but there's a full spectrum of measurements, and I think that's pretty well known in the community what needs to be done and what can be done.
We have seen companies developing spectrometers like Avantes that they are providing this kind of spectrum analysis. And I was wondering if that's enough, because we are targeting now many different markets in which modulation is a very important parameter. And to what extent is enough to monitor the wavelength of VCSELs? Gives enough information for the yield is something that they still have in mind. And it's not clear to me. I am not sure that just having a wavelength measurement is enough. There are many companies in the room that provides testing of VCSELs when they are at device level. But Joseph, could you comment maybe on this before I go to them? Is there enough information from the spectrum that we can actually guarantee that the VCSEL will work at device level?
Well, guarantee is always relative terms. I mean, to make a VCSEL work in itself, just sending out light is probably not a big challenge. But to make it work for 10 years, to take the example of the Datacom under 24/7 operation, so that's a very big challenge. And you cannot decide on whether it's going to work just by measuring the wavelength. That's not enough. So there's a lot more that needs to be measured. And again, the amount of knowledge that we are building up by correlating the device performance to the measurement that we do on the epi is building up over the last years. And it's not that we can decide only at the very end whether the device is working according to the specification. We know much earlier in the chain. However, it doesn't stop. I think still, even today, you can have characterization of the epi with a number of hidden parameters which you don't characterize, which, for instance, come by different growing conditions, and which at the end lead to different properties of the VCSEL. And that level of control we would like to achieve, that by growing the epi, and the same, by the way, applies also to other processing steps like oxidation or metallization or so on. But to grow the epi to an extent that we can safely predict the properties at the very beginning already.
On the next on this meeting of 2 hours, by the way, on this meeting of 1 hour and 25 minutes left, if we can find some information about the testing challenges for VCSELs and also about the integration with micro optics on VCSELs, we're going to have a successful meeting. So let's see how it goes. We're going to ask many of the VCSEL manufacturers in the room later. We have Vertilabs, we have Bandwidth 10. I want to understand a bit more what kind of room for cooperation is here. But in the integration with micro optics, Joseph, there is a question from you from YouTube. And that question is from the CEO of Icon Photonics, Carlos Viana. This company is actually integrating micro optics at wafer level on VCSELs. And Carlos Viana is wondering, I could see some micro optics on VCSELs in your presentation. Could you tell us a bit more about the beam control challenges that you have?
Well, first of all, this is a specific optics. All the optical elements that you can see on these pictures are optical elements that are etched into the gallium arsenide itself. So it's gallium arsenide optics. It's monolithically part of the wafer. Of course, you can also use hybrid optics by bonding optics at the surfaces, and we have done that as well. And we know how to do that as well. And at the end is, of course, to characterize the optical surfaces with respect to their geometrical properties. That's of course a big challenge that we have. And then, of course, during the process of making these optics, we have a lot of challenges in making sure that this process is stable and controlled.
The challenge from TRUMPF was on process control monitoring, and he also asked the EPIC members to think about applications. TRUMPF is here looking for partners, and Joseph is here giving one of the best presentations so far at any online technology meeting. Joseph, thank you very much for taking the opening slot. From TRUMPF, what a lineup we had today. From TRUMPF, we go to Broadcom. Gunther Steinle, System Engineer and Program Manager at Broadcom. Gunther, thank you very much for being with us today. Tell us how the EPIC members can help Broadcom be even greater than already is. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for the invitation. I would like to show you a little bit about the latest progress of our datacom solutions relying on VCSELs, as well as the industrial applications. I am responsible for the system development of some of the industrial products, and especially sensor products, spectrometers, and free space transceivers. So you will see it in my presentation, but in general, we are always interested in collaborating around our module solutions. So we are constantly searching for the better lensing systems, better diffractive elements, lower cost testing solutions, of course. Are
we supposed to be seeing some slides?
Yeah.
But we are not yet.
So
bottom of the Zoom window, share a screen. There you go.
Okay, so let's start, let's say, with our VCSEL technology. High-speed VCSEL technology, the baseline technology. The latest and greatest we have now is the AFCD V84LP. So it's a 4x 100 gig solution. So this is for boosting the 100 gigabit per channel. So going to 50 gigabaud. And using the well-established PAM4 modulation, having 4 discrete amplitude levels per bit. That means basically 2 bits per baud. Very basic modulation scheme, but with quite some overhead required. What I have to admit, the bandwidth improvement of the VCSELs is not fully taking up with the bitrate development. So pushing the bandwidth for the VCSELs is, let's say, getting harder and harder. At the moment, we are approaching the 30 gigahertz. However, of course, we would like to have more. We need more than 30 gigahertz. So the pressure to the electric equalization systems is getting higher and higher. Luckily, we are also focusing on the digital signal processing and the equalization part. So therefore, later I will show you a new set of samples where the complete transceiver chain is covered for 4 times 100 gig. In general, Broadcom, we are more or less focusing on data centers. All kinds of solutions for data centers, from the storage over the Ethernet communication down to the optical or physical layer. And this is, let's say, kind of a core product from our company. The older ones, those are already productive. They are the 4 times 50 gigabits per second PAM4 VCSEL array and the extended temperature array. So the V64XT is a special series which I am also using for industrial products because it's qualified for an extended temperature range. So we typically have 5 to 75 degrees. In this case, we have minus 20 to 90 degrees substrate temperature for the 25 gigabit non-return to zero classical modulation. On the right-hand side, you see, I mean, it's already 2 years old, but this is from the beginning when we started shipment, the qualification of the lifetime. This is maybe, I also have to admit, this takes a long time. You need to sample for a very long time data, and this is quite the same on our side. So that, yeah, I would say even at least 40% of the cost of the whole VCSEL development and so on. So that's the testing and qualification is a big issue. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we always guarantee for minimum 10 years lifetime with some, let's say, safety margin. This is the same for our datacom customers as well as for industrial customers. I think I should move to the next slide. So this is now showing the complete 100 gigabit per channel component solution lineup. We are sampling this at the moment. We expect the full productive release by end of this year. And it consists of the VCSEL array itself. I mean, it's slightly modified from the first page, but it's more or less the same physical device, just a different test decay here. And of course, then around the VCSEL is the core component, but around the VCSEL, the drivers, very important, also the PHYs, which are let's say, handling all the signal processing from the receiver side as well as from the transmit side, some pin photodetector, reference arrays, and the transimpedance amplifiers. So the whole core technology for the transceivers. And just on the upper right side, you see a picture from the 50 gigabaud measurement. The eyes are open, however, they could look nicer. So this is something we need to further improve, also from equalization point of view. In general, the whole lineup is optimized as usual for multimode fibers. In this case, the OM4, it's a standardized fiber, and we are more or less always focusing on the 850 nanometers wavelengths, because this is, let's say, the core of our applications is always the fiber application. Therefore, the VCSELs are developed around the fiber applications, and therefore 850 is more or less always the same, the unchanged target wavelengths. So if we have, and this is now, let's say, my next slide, if we have different applications where we, for instance, are not using fibers, here we have 2 examples from the industrial space where we use air, very weird medium, where we just use air. Then, of course, we are not forced to use 850 nanometer. It's just convenient because the technology is available, but we could go, or maybe even we should go to different wavelengths. Sometimes other wavelengths are better suited for certain free space applications in terms of eye safety and so on. So 1300 nanometer would have big advantages here, of course, and 1500 as well. For the optical free space communication, we have a product launched now a couple of weeks ago even. It's just a 1.25 gigabit full duplex transceiver. The special feature of this transceiver is that it is not using 2 different wavelengths. It's using the same wavelengths for receiver and transmitter. it's using the same lens for receiving and transmitting. It's using the same device. So it's a full duplex transceiver, which is using a spatial decoupling of the receiver and the transmit path. The spatial decoupling is used by the use of a Fresnel structure for the transmitter and the refractive lens below for the receiver. So transmitter and receiver are separated spatially, and also the data streams are spatially separated. So the unique thing of this transceiver is that it's really 330 degrees symmetrically. So you can use it in your rotating application. So we have one LiDAR scanner approach using this, but let's say our main application is medical. So going through glass windows where Wi-Fi or other wireless solutions are prohibited. And what we are developing now is an extension towards higher data rates, 5 gigabits plus. You think that's not a big deal. However, even using our, let's say, latest, almost latest high bandwidth VCSELs, I mean 25 gig plus, we are coming to some limitations here because from eye safety and other conditions, we are forced to keep a very low modulation current. Also in our applications, a very special thing is always power consumption. So typically when we offer some transceivers, we are not often using higher data rates, but maybe lower the power consumptions for our applications for the industrial business units. And in this case, it's the same. We have to use very small modulation currents. So this even 5 gigabit is very challenging then for this free space transceiver. And last but not least, our time of flight sensor series, they got productive last year, and we are adding more and more module types now to the family. The series now is up to 30 meters. We are developing now an extended range for up to 50 meters distance outdoor. So also the core element for this is also a new VCSEL where we improve the peak current and the brilliance basically of the VCSEL, reduce the impedance, but kept, let's say, the rise and fall times or the bandwidth more or less the same. So even the high bandwidth VCSELs are important for this time of flight solutions because the time of flight, we are talking about tens of picoseconds, which we have to differentiate. So whenever the bandwidth is changing or rise times are changing and so on, this will directly relate to distance errors, and they have to be calibrated in a very complicated way normally. So the more stable the VCSEL, the more stable the detector, the easier and the lower cost the system. So, okay, so one example here, I mean, getting, let's say, 3 times 30 devices measured over 9,000 hours. This is an actual measurement of the latest VCSEL, which we are using the latest generation now. At 100 degrees substrate and 40 milliamps CW. Typically for the modules, we are using about only 1% duty cycle, or with 40 milliamps a little bit more, 1.5%, in order to be eye safe. This means this already translates into a very, very long lifetime. But however, you can imagine, once you are leaving laser class 1, once you are boosting the power, once you are boosting the peak powers and so on, then of course you have new challenges ahead. But let's say our main focus here is to get the compact modules. Ideally, they should be reflow solderable. So the free space transceiver is reflow solderable. The time of flight sensor is not yet reflow solderable. So it uses a more traditional lens system, but we are going to develop a reflow capable device soon. So that's more or less, that was my brief overview. So that bandwidth is always important, even for applications where you don't think the speed of the VCSEL is of any relevance, or you think you have much room, but often in reality you face some conditions such as a very large temperature span or a very small current or extreme reliability conditions or whatever, where you use some of the margins of the anyhow available technology. So our track record so far was doubling the bitrate every 3 years. Let's keep fingers crossed that we maintain at this pace. But what I see from, let's say, from system point of view, more and more IP will be generated on the electronics side and on the signal processing side to keep at this pace.
Thank you very much, Gunther, for a great presentation. Gunther, you are an EPIC VIP, so you know how this works by now. EPIC is always looking for companies who can help you be even greater. So give us a couple of challenges. The EPIC question, how can you help them help you?
So in general, I have to say, again, beside from the buyer-seller, let's say, relationship, we always are searching for new elements. So new diffractive elements, new diffuser technologies to boost eye safety limits. MEMS is a very important topic. So once for our sensors, we need good mirrors for, let's say, for deflecting the light. I have shown you a very simple time-of-flight sensor, which is basically flash LiDAR. But what is also used are LiDAR solutions with certain scanners, mechanical scanners, and also for our spectrometer family, we are searching for MEMS solutions now to be more flexible, to use different detector technologies or combine, let's say, a low-grade array VCSEL together with many receiver pixels. So one challenge is to get large arrays of the VCSELs. So I have shown you an array of 4. That's a very small array. If you want to make an array of 20,000, I mean, we are probably not the company to do that. There are others having more experience. But what we see on our testing so far, the yield is it's a dramatic issue when you get to larger arrays. So either you improve let's say the defect control on epitaxy and on process, you build in some let's say redundant channels, some nice ideas, or you have good a good mirror system, a good optical system which somehow adapts. And I think adapting the optics, also the passive optics, lens elements to the active and to the alignment and so on. So similar as the cameras has done it 10 years ago with the autofocus. This will be a core technology in the future.
But this is a wafer level technology, correct? This is a wafer level technology. Otherwise, it becomes too expensive, ideally, which is something that you cannot deal with.
Absolutely. Ideally,
so let's try to find you partners for wafer level packaging of optics. Do we have anybody from NIL Technologies in the room? From NIL Technology, I think you have somebody all the way from Denmark, right? Niklas, Hansson, NIL Technologies. We are looking for partners for Broadcom to actually integrate high-level micro optics with very high precision. Can you help?
Yes, let me give you first a short introduction to NILT. So NILT is an optics company. We have 3 different product categories. We have the future displays, where we make masters for waveguides. And then we have the meta optics and the diffractive optics. And with the meta optics and the diffractive optics, we make both receiver optics, so focusing lenses, and we also make emitter optics, such as diffusers, fan-outs, collimators. And below here, you can see some typical examples. What is interesting about the diffusers that we're making is that you can go from a really high intensity to a very low intensity very quickly. So from 90% down to 10% in just below 1 degree. Mm-hmm. Then we're also using diffractive optics. And we managed to control the manufacturing to keep the zero order. So the light that does not interact with the structure, we managed to keep that to below 0.1%. Then there's also a very high degree of freedom when it comes to controlling the intensity. And this is a direct consequence of using a diffractive optic to generate the light pattern. Then we also do fan-outs, like dot patterns. And here there's also a huge flexibility in number of dots, field of view, and all of that, or field of illumination. And one challenge here is to get a low uniformity error. And we are able to reach below 10% variation. This particular example here is polarization independent, but I'll also mention a little bit later on that it's possible to deliberately use the polarization in the device. But then also collimators based on DOEs or meta-optics. There we're able to get a very low beam divergence, and you can tailor it to the specific VCSEL array. And you can have tight tolerances on the focal distance below 5 microns. Mm-hmm. So all of these different type of optics, diffusers and fan-outs and collimators, they can be done in different ways. So they can be done with diffractive optics, can also be done with meta-optics, or with microlens arrays. And so which one is the best? It really depends.
The key challenge, Niklas, is in the integration. So I think we need to find a way that we can have a VCSEL wafer, like the one that was presented by TRUMPF, by Joseph before, and a micro-optics wafer level-based manufacturing, like the one that NIL does. Is there any demonstrator or anything that we could do together? I pay for the shipping expenses of micro-optics wafer to Broadcom from NIL. Is there anything that we can do together?
Yeah, so if you look on the integration side, what we bring to the table, you can see the modules here. Mm-hmm. Down to the right. So you have a conventional module where you have a VCSEL, a collimator user. What we're doing now is we're trying to make this cheaper and smaller. So simplifying the module and also simplifying the whole assembly chain.
Gunther, you need to have an offline discussion with NIL. This is one of the ones to watch in Europe, and this is something that you can do. But allow me to continue because they have so many people coming asking for helping Broadcom on this. So I would like to continue to have a question from one of your potential or maybe current or future customers. We're going to go to Leo Space Photonics. Leontios, what's on your mind?
Thanks, Jose, and thanks, Gunther, for the very nice presentation. Here, what we do, we develop transceivers for space applications and specifically for optical inter-satellite links, optical intra-satellite links. So basically, fiber optic links within the satellite. Mm-hmm. So we approach the VCSEL from the harsh environment point of view. Now, the requirements for space, although some years back nobody cared about speed, and perhaps temperature was not a prime issue and so on and so forth. During the past years, things have changed a lot. So today we are asked to design for 25 gigs for a space application, and the end users are already asking for 50 gigabit per second. And the interesting part is that the space industry, although it is considered to be, a conservative one, it is one of the first industries that have adopted the mid-board optics approach in order to improve the bandwidth, to remove any sort of bandwidth limitations. So for space, although it sounds peculiar, it sounds strange, the VCSEL is starting to become one of the major bandwidth bottlenecks. So the question is the following. The challenge that we have here is that we need high speed and we need high temperature. So the temperature that the VCSELs will experience will be in the range of 100 degrees C. And the transceiver now, nobody wants hermetic. So the parts that are inside the transceiver, they need to show some sort of a self-hermeticity to be able to protect themselves. So my question is, the first question is, how do you see the feasibility of a high bandwidth and high temperature VCSEL from the product parts that you have, from the product codes I would say, how do you see the feasibility of a V64XT temperature with a V84LP performance? Is this something that you can see visibly?
This is something for
Merge
our
the
roadmap.
You're gonna get two answers in one, because I think Broadcom and TRUMPF both want to comment on this. Gunther first, and then Joseph.
The second one, and I stop here, is
ultra-fast photonics, please.
How do you see the scalability of the data rates trying to squeeze the power consumption? So, okay, I understand that we can go higher in terms of speed, but is there any possibility of keeping the power consumption down, of keeping the bias current of the VCSEL in low? That's it.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, we can engineer the bias current and keep it still low. The issue is when you have a large temperature span. I mean, when you only require a high bandwidth at 100 degrees, that should be possible. The efficiency is less, of course, but other effects are somehow better. But when you want to go from -40 or even -60 to 100, we have an issue, I have to say. And so whenever we can limit somehow the temperature span, then we are in the game. And on the other side, of course, I think for space, we probably need to discuss also about redundancy or so. We have not done space. We have no experience with, let's say, the hardening of the technology for.
Gunther, you need to join our meetings on space technology, especially on free space communications. You will be amazed at the volume of this market. This is a high volume market now. But Joseph, you want to comment as well from TRUMPF?
Yes, I think because it's one of my favorites. It's truly one of my favorites. There's a solution to high temperature, and that solution is going away from 850 nanometers to 940, 980, or 1000. Because just for physical principles, you can operate a 980 under the same stress conditions, 40 degrees, 30, 40 degrees higher than you can operate an 850. The reason that Datacom is with 850 is just a historical standardization reason, but there's no good physical argument for that choice. It's a historical choice. And if there's a compelling reason to go to much higher temperatures, which I expect is coming, and we see that many times, then I think we have to discuss changing wavelengths.
Yeah.
And I think that every expert in the community would confirm this, even Broadcom.
I want to address, after the presentations by Lumentum and II-VI, I want to have a round on how we can make tunable VCSELs together on wavelengths. Before that, we have a question in the room coming from MRSI, this key company in the die bonding and packaging. Ji Qian, thank you very much for joining, showing that this meeting is European oriented but not European exclusive. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Jose. We have a lot of business in Europe, so friend of Europe as well, and our headquarters in Europe. So I just want to follow up a question. First, congratulations to Gunther, Broadcom. The 100G VCSEL is very impressive. That's another good news, because yesterday I saw news Lumentum Oclara had 100G direct modulator lasers. So that's great. So just want to let you know, we actually had done some passive lens array attach onto VCSELs and wafer level packaging. And there's all different kind of process. And so I'd like to follow up with you to see what's your needs if our product can help. And we have process experience to certain.
Okay, very good. So that's great. So there's a German saying, I don't know, the devil lies in the detail or something. There's always at the end a stupid reason why you have to build up a discrete module, whatever. But we always want to avoid it. So having a wafer level technology is always the desire. And maybe for some reasons for this transceiver we had to go away again, but it's already very small. But sooner or later, with some, let's say, flip chip technology or some adding the VCSEL to the silicon and so on in a defined way, more or less, we should be at a wafer level scheme.
Yes, wafer level, that's a trend we're seeing, and particularly for smartphone market, there's a lot of I will say stop short that the lens directly attached to a wafer level VCSEL array. And that has to be very high accurate, submicron wafer level packaging has to be passive because you need extremely volume kind of a throughput. So we're seeing a lot, and that's something we can contribute a little bit, and we have to work together with device guys.
Thank you very much, Yikian. I want to continue because you know what, Gunther, people come to this meeting looking for VCSELs. They want to find a VCSEL and they go with challenges. So after the first two presentations, I think it is time to go to another one. Quside is a company making quantum random number generators, and they are looking for a VCSEL. They are looking for a VCSEL. Domenico, what are you looking for?
Hi, Jose. Thank you, for the introduction. So yeah, we are a startup based in Barcelona. Just a quick introduction about Quside. We founded the company 3 years ago, and our first product, we launched the first product last summer, which is actually a quantum random number generator. We are very interested in VCSEL since in the last 2 years and a half. We've been studying quantum effect in VCSEL, and we want to use it for cost-effective, very highly integrated component for, especially for the new markets such as IoT and 5G. So, we are looking for companies which would like to engage with us to develop this highly integrated solution. And we also, in the last 2 years, explored this effect and filed.
Domenico, are we supposed to see one slide with the specifications?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, because I want the specs. Slides. These people, everybody, all the VCSEL manufacturers are today here waiting for this, and they want to write them down, the numbers.
Oh, I don't have the numbers here, but I'd like to engage with someone. I like to share those numbers privately, actually, if that's not a problem. I just have, a general slide.
Show it, please.
Slide, so. Yeah.
Button on the Zoom window, share screen, and then you select the screen that you want to share with the universe. Yes.
I guess you can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I said, we are based in Barcelona, 23 people right now, 35% of us, all the PhD in related physics or engineering. And as I said, we have basically developed solution for safer connectivity and advanced computation, mostly quantum random numbers for those two main applications at the moment. And as I said, we are looking, our main added value are basically speed and high quality of the numbers we were able to generate, and we developed those products and tested in several applications like data center and high performance computing. And those are some use cases, as I said, enhanced security, QKD, and Monte Carlo simulation mostly. So, what I was saying, we would like to engage with some VCSEL manufacturer to bring those devices to the next level, especially for consumer electronics. And yeah, I don't have the numbers here, but I have all the numbers. So if you can get in contact with, TRUMPF or others, I know that Lumentum is also here. We've been in contact with some of the...
This is the company that put one of the first quantum products in the market. This is the company that has attracted interest from many, many companies worldwide. I'm amazed by the introductions they have made, that they have followed up. And this is a winning horse in quantum technologies. So please, I'm going to introduce you to all the VCSEL manufacturers in the room that you haven't been in touch with. I want them to help you because it's very important for us to help you. After the next two presentations, we're going to address the topic of tunable VCSELs. But the next two presentations are quite interesting. We got the two market leaders on VCSEL manufacturing, Lumentum and II-VI back to back. Who gives more than this? Let's start with Lumentum. My very good friend and VCSEL lover, David Cheskis. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon here in the Netherlands. Tell us how we can help Lumentum being greater than already is. The floor and the attention of everyone goes to David.
This might be. Oh, sorry, 1 second here.
You can see the background of David, and we can see him as well. David.
Hi there.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thanks for your time today. It's good to be here. Thanks, Jose. As you know, You got me really excited about your video, so I'm going to share with everybody here some great stuff in manufacturing for VCSELs and see where we can get to. A lot of great challenges there, a lot of great discussions already, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about where we're at today. So let me, without any further ado, as Joseph mentioned before, we're shipping a lot of devices. So we've got over 1 billion devices with 0 field failures in extraordinarily high volume, large scale devices for consumer electronics. And what that's really done is enabled us to build on our manufacturing platform. And that's the key to the next generation of technologies and applications, really. So let me go through a little bit with you on where we're at with that, and we'll talk a little about some of the challenges. So, where we started, this all goes back, 5 or 6 years ago when we really introduced that 6-inch VCSEL manufacturing platform. And, you go back to 2017 there with some of the first high volume consumer electronics, large arrays that were introduced there. And that really changed the manufacturing paradigm and the infrastructure. And it really enabled us to start building on top of that. And I consider that Gen 1 of VCSEL manufacturing technologies. We've improved it over the years. Multi-junction epi for VCSELs was a big improvement, which started to improve the power conversion and wall plug efficiencies up to 48, and we're well beyond that today. We've also increased our manufacturing capabilities with smaller and tighter pitches. And today, we're starting to get into that second generation of VCSEL technology. And that's really what we're talking about today is how do we do more integration? How do we make more functionality? And things like multi-layers of metal, making systems matrix addressable. We can do all of those things today. And that's really what we're building on with new applications and proliferating where VCSELs are today. In addition, we've continued to implement new epi with now 5 and 6J epi for VCSELs with 400 watts peak. A lot of these are automotive applications, but a lot of that is also applicable to many of the other consumer and industrial applications that we're talking about here as well. And so where are we going in the future now? We're looking at more integration, all in one with backside emitting, integrated micro lenses, addressability, longer wavelengths, as we've been talking about today at 1300 nanometers, 1400 nanometers and beyond, and then polarizing these light sources for advanced applications. So let me give a brief introduction as to what that looks like for our second generation of technology in the platform here. And again, we talked a lot today about the challenges, and challenges are integrating more functionality. And what are we doing to address that? It's really, again, 4 of these things here: backside emitting, integrated micro lenses, multi-junction epi, and addressable emitters. And what that really allows you to do is to do a lot of the things and complement what's being done with micro lenses, with these things that the team at NIL Technologies is doing, with the MEMS teams, make those systems more efficient and also cost reduce them, provide more integration and compact systems. At the same time, it gives you a lot more flexibility with what you can do with a VCSEL today. So I'm going to give you an example a little bit here of what you can do with an addressable array. So I show here on the left an image of a VCSEL array that's broken into multiple sections, and you can light up different segments at different times. And again, be able to do this in a way that allows you to optimize your system design, customize new things, and really do different things with it. Another example of what that addressable array would look like is now we can do interleaving of these. Looks a lot like an LED where you can turn them on and off in any configuration, whatever you want to do. And again, that's all driven by the fact that we can do these second generation of technologies with multi-layers of metal, with addressability. It's extremely complex. It looks very simple, but it's extremely complex, primarily because of the power levels and the current that you're trying to get to with these size of VCSEL arrays. And then another great example is what you can do here with kind of like 2 different arrays interleaved within each other. You can see we're turning one off and the other on at the same time with different electrodes there. And you can imagine that that could be in any kind of pattern or configuration. Again, because we are doing the second generation of technologies. And this one on the right here is an example of you can modulate the intensity of this VCSEL array and use the same collinear optics, but maintain a constant current source. So you maintain a lot of the wavelength stability, a lot of the other parameters that would change if you try to modulate the intensity for a single emitter. Again, this is enabled by the ability to do addressability at multiple layers of metal, building on top of that first generation here in our second generation platform. Let me give you another quick example of what this looks like with integrated optics. Now, we talked a little bit about wanting to do complex optics with a DOE or a diffuser. And you see what that example would look like here on the left with a traditional packaged optics with a driver IC and a VCSEL. We're working to integrate all of that into one chip and put that all on top of one driver IC. And in different implementations there, you can kind of see on the left and the right, it's the same approach. It's the same technology using backside emission. It's the same technology using micro lenses, but we were able to do different things with it. You can kind of see, obviously, that gallium arsenide is written upside down because we're using a flip chip approach and we're emitting out of the backside. So the top of that wafer, you can see, is between the gallium arsenide chip and the submount. Then on the left, we've got 2 contacts, 3 contacts there. On the right, we've got multiple contacts. So more addressability there. You can see different lensing on the right versus the left. And you can envision that you could do that in different ways within one chip. You can do different, light up different areas within one chip, do diffusers, collimation, beam steering. All of these kinds of things can occur once you're able to implement this. And that's really where we're at today. And I'll show you an example real quick of what that looks like. You see what the chip looks like on the left-hand side there at the bottom, a chip photograph of the backside of a chip. A whole bunch of emitters there. In the middle, you see the unlensed near field pattern, how they light up. And then in the middle there, you see the lensed emission in the near field images. And you can see the effect of the lenses, how that spreads out, how that changes the intensity pattern in the near field, and then on the right in the far field. And so, the challenges here really are twofold. One is, what we talked about before is this addressability, and how do we do that? What do we do with it? What can we do with it? What do you want to do with it? What is the limits of the applications and the technologies, and where can we go with that? Another challenge here is, what can you do with integration? What are the kinds of lenses, integrated optics that are useful for these different systems? What are the different systems we can design with these kinds of capabilities built in? Another is, how much more stacking can we do? On the top right there, and you've got all of this built in with things that we know how to do: integrated micro lenses, backside emission, flip chip. How do we mount that onto a driver IC, make this compatible with silicon technology, and really be able to go to the next level of integration here? And again, one of the comments made before was the silicon platform, and that's what we're really looking at right now is how this VCSEL manufacturing platform looks so much like an evolution like the silicon manufacturing platform, and that's what we're able to do today. And where does this all get done? Again, it's your traditional markets today in the smartphones. You see a lot of efforts going into automotive, both in cabin as well as the long range LiDAR applications. But what's really exciting today is a lot of this integration and customization of the optics and the electronics really enables these IoT markets, where we're seeing things like access control and industrial applications, and even wearable applications. And that's what's really exciting, because those things are going to drive the demands of billions and billions more devices. And the manufacturing platform today is robust enough, but what we need to do next is really add on top of that all of these extra technologies and capabilities to be able to supply these markets in a cost-effective manner and really enable them to get out there. And that's what's exciting to me about VCSELs today, is that we've done a great job of putting them into devices, into billions and billions of devices, all of these companies that you're listening to today. And they're going to go into billions and billions more, because we've got these manufacturing platforms that, as Jose said in his intro, it makes it a cost-effective platform that we can now do a whole bunch of other things that we never thought about doing before. So just real briefly, kudos to you, Jose. Great visions. And again, things I've been talking about for years and years and years. Gen 1, we've got these, anything from low power to mid power, and even today into high power. And Gen 2 is really a combination of these new technologies built on top of there. And then the future direction is really where we're going to take this, some of the discussions we've had with long wavelengths and polarized systems for advanced technologies. I won't go through the summary, but we're really evolving here today. We're focused on manufacturing platform, new products, And what we really need, as I said, those challenges before, what do we do with these things? And also at the bottom, their ecosystem partners are really important for establishing as module integrators, detector solutions, and electronic integration to make all of this happen. So thank you very much for your time. Look forward to some questions. Well, you know what? I'll stay on that page.
Thank you very much, David. Super nice presentation, as always. So, okay, I heard a lot of your challenges. They are mainly related to micro optics and packaging, right? So I am sure we are going to have we have companies that are going to comment now. I'm sure I already see a question from ficonTEC in the chat. But what about testing? Do you have any challenge on testing? Did you mention something?
Testing has been an extraordinary challenge from day one. I mean, going back to 2015, 16, testing is what enables all of this to happen. VCSELs, especially at these wavelengths, are complex wafers, and you need extraordinary, not just electrical and optical testing, but also mechanical handling systems. And we've been, innovating across that for all of these years, and it's working with partners that allows you to continue to make progress there. And some of the interesting things we're doing today in testing are for backside emission, which is a completely new way to look at a wafer, testing on wafer, and then also with integrated optics like diffusers, collecting that light and analyzing that, and then also the longer wavelengths. So all of these things those are the challenges today with those new technologies in the test world.
Okay, because now I see a question in the chat from Instrument Systems, Karthik. Karthik, maybe would you like to make the question by yourself, and maybe you have one slide to show what the Instrument System is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everybody can see and hear me.
Yes, we can see and hear you very well. If you want to share your screen.
Yeah, so I will quickly give everybody a quick overview on what we do. First of all, thanks for the invite, and it's a really pleasure. It's been a really great discussion all around on VCSEL manufacturing technologies. So we at Instrument Systems, we provide solutions for all. We provide solutions for all kind of VCSEL testing, comprehensive along the entire value chain, so to speak. So here here you have from the wafer level to the chip packaging to the driver module, and towards also at the end device level. So here, basically, I would like to quickly show you the two devices that we have, that enable near field and far field characterization. So on the left, you see the near field characterization device. It is the VTC 4000, states for VCSEL testing camera. So it's a comprehensive near field characterization device. It allows you to make single emitter analysis, including the radiant flux, the polarization angle and degree of each single emitter. You can, of course, combine it with a spectrometer and measure the wavelength of each single emitter. And apart from that, of course, you can also measure the beam quality parameters like the waste of the emitters, the numerical aperture, the M² value, so on and so forth. The good, really great thing about is the camera is completely and absolutely calibrated and traceable to our national institute, which gives then really unprecedented uncertainty budgets. So especially when, for example, for the far field, which I'm coming to soon, when it comes to laser eye safety parameters or determining the laser class of the DUT, such traceable data is always an add-on advantage. On the right side, you can see the far field characterization device that we supply. It's the VTC 2400. So it's basically a comprehensive far field characterization device. It consists of a monochromatic camera with a light permeable screen and a mount that you can see here for the VCSEL or for the DUT. The VTC 2400 also is absolutely calibrated. You can measure the absolute radiant flux, the angular and spatial distribution of the emitted light, the opening angle, the cross-section profile, the emission pattern, the middle and the outer peaks. You can identify the hotspot on the screen. which basically is one of the also an important factor in determining the laser class of the DOT. We've spoken about the eye safety considerations here, and here also we, as I mentioned, we provide complete traceable calibration with uncertainty budgets and a certificate. So it's an important factor for the eye safety considerations.
Okay, thank you very much, Karthik.
Yeah, just one last slide and I'm done. Sorry. Yeah, so just wanted to quickly summarize. So we have the entire portfolio for test VCSEL testing solutions for the temporal, the electrical, the optical, spatial solutions, or the spatial measurements. On top of that, we also have a time resoluted measurement. So if we want to, we also offer solutions at nanosecond pulsing characterization for devices that supply for devices that need to be characterized at nanosecond pulsing.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. Very interesting technology to test the VCSEL arrays, right? So, okay, we have plenty of questions in the chat. So maybe we can go now to ficonTEC. Greg, do you want to make the question by yourself?
Moment, it's unfortunately it's no, it might be
no,
working.
yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, right. My camera was not working for most of this session, so that's why my picture keeps disappearing. Some very interesting talks. I think we're hearing a lot about the increasing
Greg, I think we are experiencing some technical problems here. Maybe we can come back to you later, okay?
No, if you like, I'll answer his question.
Yes, sure.
Chat, if you like, yeah. I mean, this question is a general question regarding the arrays. Is VCSEL redundancy built into array stacks? So VCSEL redundancy is built into many products, yes. You know, it really is product dependent and system dependent. So, you know, we've got a lot of different products that address the systems in different ways. Within an individual epi stack, there is no redundancy, but we do a lot of testing to ensure a lot of the VCSEL, as you can see on the previous system, you know, we're measuring every single VCSEL in an array. We measure not just whether they light up, but how much power they have in relative to each other. And there's a lot of criteria that we need to meet depending on the system application. So there's some versions of VCSEL arrays have redundancy, others not as critical.
Thank you. Thanks for jumping in. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. A question I have is, are you still testing sequentially?
Well, I mean, no, look, we light up an array at the same time. So we've got one array, and depending on if there's matrix addressability, there may be different kinds of waveforms that we need to use or different functions that we need to test them in different manners. So it really is system and application dependent.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. And now Wilfred from SUS Micro Optics. Do you have a comment related to micro optics?
Yeah, thank you. Very impressive to see that you can integrate it now, the micro optics indirectly in the wafer, in the gallium arsenide. How do you see the combination of this integrated optics with external micro optics? So, I mean, we're very strong in imprinted micro optics. So we do this for automotive application and really high volume now. We imprint polymer and glass optics. So the question is, can you combine your optics with these types of optics? Would there be a chance to do this, or does it have to be a still assembled chip level assembly, or even on a package level?
Yeah, great question. And look, I think the goal is integrate as much as possible on wafer, on chip, right? There's some things in optics that you can't do at short focal lengths or short throw distances. So I think what you can do is utilize the on-chip integration to optimize your off-chip optics, and whether that's making less complex, making your packaging less complex. The more you can do on chip, and again, this is a lesson that the silicon industry has taught us over the last 60, 70 years. How many years is it? Yeah, 60 years or so, right? I can't even remember. But look, it's integrate as much as you can. More functionality brings down the cost, brings down the system complexity, and what that does is enables new things to be done, more ways to do it, and more efficiencies to be gained. And then you guys will advance things, and then that'll make everything. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I would say it's a combination of both.
Okay, and can I have a follow-up point? Yeah, do you want to do that on wafer level, or do you want to integrate it, or do you leave that up to your clients, basically, this integration?
No, we do all of the integration on wafer. We basically provide chips to our customers, right? And so however
you would add more functionality now with extra packaging.
Correct.
Yeah.
And look, they ask us to do more functionality. They ask us to do more integration because they want to cost reduce, size reduce, and improve the performance and do different things with their systems. And that's the way to do it, is integration.
Okay. Well, then we should talk. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Next question that we have in the chat, Badu Dayal from Photonic Components, DFM. Do you want to make the question by yourself? A question regarding the size.
Yeah. Actually, David, this is Babu from Hong Kong. Yeah.
Hi, Babu.
Yeah. Actually, all the speakers, have excellent presentation telling very high volumes. So my fundamental question: do you think the VCSEL volumes reaches 8-inch fab?
I don't see it just yet. I think there's a lot of capacity in the gallium arsenide VCSEL space today at 6-inch, and it's scalable. So and I think there's a lot of challenges with 8-inch, but it's a conversation you and I have been talking about for many years, right? But the challenges with 8-inch are obviously you can get more chips on a wafer, but it's a completely different manufacturing platform, right? And a lot of it is silicon based. So now you're going to start to do things in a silicon fab rather than a 3-5 fab, and I think that there's still a lot of volume scalable in 6-inch 3-5 fabs.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.
Okay, David. So I think you mentioned before that you were doing the epi wafer process by yourself, in-house, I mean.
The wafer fab, we do everything fabless for
fabless. Okay.
Yeah. So then we do some in-house epi and processing for other VCSEL products and laser products as well.
Very good. So maybe now is the right moment to introduce you one of our companies that is launching a new epi wafer process for developing VCSELs. Jacek from VIGO Systems, are you here?
Yes. Thank you, Anna.
All
the great presentations here. It was very interesting to hear all the speakers, and I will be happy to tell you a few more words about VIGO Systems. So. VIGO is a well-established company. We've been on the market for over 30 years in photonics, and during that time we worked with many prominent companies. We also are on the stock exchange, so VIGO is a public company. And in 2019 we established a new 3-5 epi foundry and invited top experts in epitaxy to lead this epi foundry. We have the G4 reactor, multiple wafers configurations, very easy access to SIMs and many other characterization methods. And we, in the VCSELs area, we focus on both short and long wavelengths. In our manufacturing capabilities, we show that with the characterization methods, we show that we have quite great growth control, and we meet all the tolerances in uniformity, doping levels, impedance levels, and so on. And also one interesting thing is that in-house, we have the capability to do the prototypes to confirm the quality of our materials. So yeah, thank you very much. And we are very interested in collaboration on specifically custom, niche, and top performing products. Thank you. Anna, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was mute. Yes. So thank you very much for this. I'm sure it's worth an extra call with you and David later. Okay, so then let's move ahead in the program and let's go for the next presentation. So yes, I am very happy to introduce to you Julian from TUTSIC. So Julian, if you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And first of all, let me apologize. My webcam is not working, so you will not see my face, which is maybe not such a bad news. I don't know.
No problem.
Okay, so thanks a lot for inviting me to this presentation today. We've heard a lot of very interesting topics already around VCSELs, around manufacturing challenges, around new technologies. What I wanted to center my talk on is the trends in the VCSEL illumination. And trends can be driven either by the technology or they can be driven by the application. So I want to spend a little bit of time on both those aspects. In terms of market demand, clearly there was a market demand and there is still a market demand in mobile space. And that's really fueled. Do you see my screen, by the way?
Yes, we can see it very well. No problem. Go ahead.
So it really fueled the demand on the very large manufacturing infrastructure. And David talked about the 6-inch and how the 6-inch is probably sufficient for today's demand on VCSELs. So this infrastructure is here and it's here to stay. And now it can be used for new demand. And the demands, for example, will come from currently the face unlock, for example, and the photography and the world-facing cameras in mobile phone, and will deploy in the future into augmented reality. And when I say augmented reality, that means augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality. Another field where more and more 3D cameras are being implemented is in white goods. And the first simpler example is probably a vacuum cleaner, where you want more efficient mapping of your surrounding. You also want to make sure that you are spanning the entire space that you want to vacuum. But other white goods will also get their 3D camera for user authentication, for example, for customization. And even if you generalize white goods into cameras and what used to be called webcam or surveillance cameras, then 3D cameras will become very prevalent. Then it was mentioned briefly, I think David mentioned it before, in the automotive space, we have both the in-cabin applications where you want to monitor the driver, so driver monitoring systems, or you want to monitor the occupancy monitoring systems. And for example, you can measure with a 3D camera, you can measure the body position so that the airbag can be triggered without any risks of injuries. You can also customize the cabin based on who is driving. For example, the AC preference or the seat position. There is also gesture control for infotainment. So there is really a lot of applications that are enabled by a 3D camera in-cabin application. And then exterior automotive, that's typically what we talk when we say LiDAR or ADAS, autonomous driving. And that, again, can be several types of application. Can be collision avoidance, pedestrian detection, can be the automatic braking systems. So there are really a lot of systems that would rely on the depth information, both in cabin and exterior. And finally, what we are seeing as well is that more and more in the industrial space, maybe what's coined with the term Factory 4.0, also here you want to map your surrounding and you want to have the most efficient understanding of the environment that you navigate in. So for example, for automatic forklifts, you want to make sure that you recognize the shape of the packages that you are handling so that you don't damage them and that you can carry them safely to the place where you want to drop. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of each of these applications, but each of these applications will have specifics on the illumination, that means on the VCSEL. That's also on the VCSEL system, so what it needs to be integrated with, for example, driver, optics, or any other kind of systems. And that's why it's important to understand these trends so that you can steer the technology of your illumination systems to address them. So one of the trends, and it was mentioned earlier as well by other speakers, is multi-junction VCSELs. In a multi-junction VCSEL, maybe for those that are not familiar with it, so in a standard VCSEL with a single junction, you have a gain region which is sandwiched between two mirrors. And the light oscillates between the two mirrors, gets amplified, starts lasing. That's why the light comes out from the top. That's why it's a VCSEL. In a multi-junction VCSEL, you stack multiple gain regions between the two mirrors. So what it means is that for the same surface area of emission, you get higher peak power. So you increase the power density of your VCSEL chip, which has many advantages. One of them, obviously, is that because the power density is increased for a customer that looks for a certain power level, the chip size is reduced, and the chip size usually scales with the price. So the cost is then reduced. But on top of that, you operate by cascading several gain regions. So that means you increase the voltage, the operating voltage, but you reduce the current. And when you want to go to very high peak power, which is typically done with high current for a single junction, it's very hard to design a driver that can drive fast enough to the high level of peak current. So when you increase the voltage, you simplify the driver design and you enable faster rise and fall time. So, for example, in applications such as direct time of flight, such as, for example, LiDAR, this is very advantageous. This is an example of a 5-junction, so 5 junctions that are stacked on top of each other, 5-junction chip, about a 1 millimeter square chip, a smaller emitting area, where we get about a bit more than 500 watts of peak power, which amounts to 1.2 kilowatt per square. And clearly, that's a regime that's very interesting for direct time of flight, and especially for flash systems, direct time of flight, where it might start to compete with other automotive systems based on edge-emitting lasers. When you use this type of chips as well in mobile application or in mobile applications, the advantage is you get a smaller chip, you get lower cost, but also because you drive them at lower current, the impact of electromagnetic interference is reduced. And when you have a very compact system where let's say the driver, the chip, and maybe an antenna are in close proximity, this is important. You don't want your 3D camera illumination system to interfere with your reception of your phone, for example, in a mobile phone. In terms of the system trends, the typical illumination for a time of flight is what's called a flood illumination, where you have a VCSEL and let's say a diffuser, and the role of the diffuser is to shape the beam that is emitted from the illumination system, to shape it so that it matches the camera field of view. As we talked about, this can be integrated. So typically, traditionally, it has been done at the heterogeneous level. So there is a VCSEL and there is a diffuser in a package. But now more and more, these two functions get integrated. And we even talked about wafer scale optics there. That is definitely a trend. Then we can go, so the advantage of this flood illumination is that it's rather simple. You illuminate the entire scene at once, and you detect the depth information of the entire scene also at once. So you have no lagging effect, no ghosting effect. But the problem is that now you dilute your emitted power to the entire scene. That means that you need to drive the illumination to pretty high peak power to reach a certain threshold on each pixel on the camera. Now, the alternative is that instead of illuminating the entire scene, you illuminate one single pixel at a time with a scanning system. So here you have a laser, you have a scanning system that deflects the beam to the right position on the scene, and then gets imaged on the detector. Now, the advantage of that is that you have very high peak power density at the level of the pixel, so you can get to very long reach. The inconvenience is that you have a mechanical system to scan, which is not desirable, especially in automotive systems. And you also have the lag that you need to raster the beam across the entire scene, so that will lead to ghosting artifacts. Another alternative, which is maybe also something that we see as a trend, is it's kind of an intermediate between the two. Instead of flooding the entire scene with power, you actually project dots. And those dots, they then concentrate the amount of power on a position that gets then gets imaged on the sensor. So it's a way to increase then the reach that a typical flood illumination system would be able to reach by, again, concentrating the power on the dots. And finally, we also talked about it. I think David showed some data there. Is addressability. And addressability can do several things. So here is an example of why it's useful. I talked about the scanning system that requires a moving part to deflect the beam in the right direction in LiDAR. But now if you have an addressable array, and we imagine here that you have an array with each line being addressable individually, if you turn on the laser one by one with an optical system in front, then you can imagine that your beam will then scan the scene at different time. And here again, you get a concentration of the power on the line that you illuminate. Now the drawback, well, the advantage, let's say first, is that you have no moving part, which for a LiDAR is very desirable. The drawback is that you trade off the moving part for a larger chip where you need to have this addressability. But on the other hand, because you benefit from the manufacturing infrastructure of the VCSEL, this trade-off tends to be beneficial. And maybe the last slide to give you an overview of who II-VI is and what we do. So we are one of the biggest supplier of VCSELs out there. We've heard numbers of billion of lasers, billion, which is a really outstanding number, thinking back like 5 or 6 years ago. So we have shipped also in this range, probably more than 30 billion emitters, probably even in 1 year. So those numbers are real. The VCSEL manufacturing is in full swing, and we benefit from the 6-inch manufacturing that we have. And in our case, it's all vertically integrated. So we can do single emitters, which you see here. This is used, for example, as a proximity sensor. We can do arrays where they're all in parallel. We also package those VCSELs into SMT packages with a diffuser, for example. We can do packages with more integrated functions, for example, with a driver. And there will be more and more development with more and more functionality, both at the package level and at the chip level moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian. Super nice presentation. So, okay, you have been showing, you have been explaining different challenges. Maybe you can propose to the companies that are in this meeting a few challenges, how they can help you.
Yeah, I mean, one topic that came back several times is testing. And testing in a way is a challenge, but I also agree with the first presentation from Joseph that we only test because we have to. If we could get away without testing, that would be very beneficial. So that goes back to the comment about the EPI and EPI uniformity and control and inline controls. Those are very important. But to come back to the testing, where we have a challenge is around the automotive space and short pulse applications. When we drive now arrays to the range of what I showed, the 500 watt, with let's say clearance of 150 amps in nanosecond, this is not something that you can easily do, and this is something that you cannot do at this moment on wafer level. So that means that if we need to test statistics, whole wafer, this is still a challenge. And at the same level for reliability, when we're used to testing thousands of chips for reliability models, also here when we want to do these reliability models in short pulse, high peak power, this remains still a challenge.
Okay, thank you very much, Julian. Yes, I see testing is something that it's a challenge that all the presentations had in common during this afternoon. Okay, so maybe now I would like to give the floor to Mark Litkowski. Mark, do you have a comment, right?
I sure do. I definitely agree on the 8 inches is not hardly around the corner. The gallium arsenide, we're going to stick with the 6-inch. I just wanted to make a few points, given that we just had the two dominant vendors speak, and I think it's important, that we point out that Lumentum did pull off with WinSemi a minor miracle in 2017 with the 6-inch, and There's no doubt about that. But we've gone all this time without mentioning the big elephant in the room, and that's Apple. Apple's the big customer here. And the problem with Apple is they don't exactly give good direction. And in that context, I would like to ask, if I can, both David and Julian, doesn't that become problematic in that don't you need, especially in Lumentum's case, because you're using, you have that particular business model that's heavily dependent on outside vendors. How do you implore these vendors to be able to change on a dime? And with the 2.6 ought to be congratulated because you have really come back on the vertical integration. The last days of Finisar was problematic. I know you lost at least one good designer that was very much in touch with Apple. So my question to 2.6 in particular, to Julian, would be, is there a need for outside designers that might help you going forward?
Okay, so I see there are two questions here. One is for Julian for 2.6 and one is for David Lumentum. Who wants to start?
It's Julian's turn. You can go first. Sure.
Okay. Julian, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Such a gentleman. So I believe the question was about whether we see the need for exterior designer, chip design. In general, we tend to have the philosophy of being vertically integrated that also includes the design. However, if there are some skill sets that we do not have in-house, or there are certain reasons of bandwidth, for example, we are not adverse also to contacting consultants or experts. But let's say that's not the standard practice. And to comment to your statement about Finisar and maybe a chip designer leaving. So we have a lot of chip designers, and they don't all come from the Finisar side. We also had a lot of chip designers from the 2.6 side. So the combination of the two is really world-class chip design capabilities.
Okay, thank you. And David, now would you like to comment?
Yeah, sure. No, I think you got a lot of great points there, Mark, and Julian, a lot of successes there at 2.6. And I think your point, Mark, is really well made, is that 5-6 years ago, this was a monumental effort by several groups of talented companies really working hard. It was kind of a moonshot mission, and it worked. It's successful. Before that, Lumentum was also an integrated device manufacturer, but we found that with the economics of the consumer electronics market, it really makes sense to move to the same model that has been proven to be effective across all of the markets and technologies for the most part, especially in consumer electronics. So question, how do you get these companies to scale with you and change on a dime? That's what they've been doing for years and years and years. And this is just the first time that they've been doing it for VCSELs and for optics. And that's really the difference, is that this is not, it's not how do you continue to change, it's what do you change to next? Because now we can do all of these things. We can scale. We've got so many great talented people and organizations that can do these things. And we're aggressively going after these new business opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much for this discussion. Now, Julian, I would like to introduce you one of the companies that we have here in this meeting. I'm sure a company as 2.6, you are always looking for new materials and yes, more resistant materials. So we have here Sven from Delo. Sven, maybe would you like now to take the floor and to explain a little bit what is Delo doing?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Let me share my screen. So now it should work. So I'm from the company Delo. We are a manufacturer of industrial adhesives and high-tech materials. And what we can offer is, or are materials for the lenses, for example, or for the whole VCSEL packaging to bond and to fix it. What the advantages of our materials are that we have adhesion on various substrates, on the typical VCSEL substrates, have a low outgassing behavior, no bleeding on the substrates, can provide small bond lines, high temperature stabilities, and many other behaviors here. We are also deliver ultra black materials to block some light, or to diffuser materials, lens bonding in general, active alignment. So many things. If you have any questions, contact us on the photonics experts at delo.de, or visit us at the Photonics Plus event, which is coming up in the next weeks, that we also attend and have our own booth. So if you have any challenges in the packaging, please come back to us. We are looking forward to your challenges here.
Thank you very much, Sven. A very nice slide. Now maybe is the moment to introduce another company that we have in the room, another VCSEL manufacturer, Christian from Vertilas. Would you like to comment a little bit what is Vertila doing?
I think most of it has already been said. Let me switch on my camera just a moment. Hi everybody. Hi.
Hello, Christian. How are you doing?
Hanging in. All right. Yeah, I think most of the things have already been touched on. I mean, we as a long wavelength VCSEL manufacturer always, of course, interested in the applications going long wavelength. I think I heard some comments in earlier presentations, like Gunther from Broadcom mentioned that he sees some demand in higher wavelength. Other than that, of course, we face, as Vertilas, the same challenges as all the other manufacturers. We have all these challenges on the design side. I think Broadcom and the others showed high bandwidth VCSELs on gallium arsenide basis going up to 30 gigahertz. If you look at in the indium phosphide space, what we have as a base technology, we are, I want to say, more or less stuck around 20 gigahertz right now. So we are trying to find the path up to 30 gigahertz. Having said this, our lasers can be modulated up to 50 gigabit per second. And Anna, you mentioned this project earlier, the EU project, Passion, where we realized a 2 terabit per second integrated transmitter based on VCSEL technology and silicon photonics. So that's a big thing for us at Vertilas, is really looking at the integration assembly technology of taking our VCSELs and combining them with the silicon photonics technology. And in the first step, of course, is a hybrid technology. In the future, maybe we are seeing also possibilities to really directly integrate 3-5 materials together with silicon photonic platforms. Yeah, what else? I've seen a lot of talk about assembly and test. Test is a big thing for us. We do a lot of testing as anybody else in the VCSEL space. We test during the course of the production of the wafers, of course. There was talk about how do you check the epi structures if they are in spec or not. You don't want to find out once you finish the wafer. That's not the right time to do. So we have a lot of testing actually implemented, and also later steps later in the production phase where we can compensate for inaccuracies that may happen in the epitaxy manufacturing or in the processing. So that's really key. But what's also very important for us is we are mostly selling into the single mode laser space today, but we are looking into the 2D array space now. So we have prototypes. We are engaging with potential customers right now. So the packaging of, high power VCSEL arrays is a key to us. So we're looking out for partners in that area. And then anything around burn-in and testing. Today we sell single VCSELs. So every VCSEL we ship today sees a burn-in. It's being tested numerous times. We're also looking to scale that. Everything we are using today, we have developed in-house because of a lack of really standardized equipment being available, and also at the high price tag of those types of equipment. So those are the key topics we are looking at. It's been a really wonderful discussion so far, and thanks to everybody contributing to this. It's really a great community. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christian. And now let's move to the last talk of the agenda. So last but not least, I want to introduce you to Phil from Bandwidth 10. So Phil, if you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose. So Bandwidth 10 was started in 2011. Can you go to the next slide? And basically the goal of the company is to commercialize tunable VCSEL technology by using HCG technology that was developed at Berkeley. Today, we're 55 people worldwide with a core team in US and Taiwan and 11 PhDs in the organization. So we have a very strong design development team. And as many people indicated, we are doing a lot of modeling and focusing on the development of the technology. Today, we're doing wafer scale integration of the MEMS technology in the device. You want to go to the next slide. As you can see on the right-hand side over here, we have a MEMS structure that actually moves, changing the cavity length of the device, which allows you to tune single mode devices long wavelength. We started out at 1550. We have also integrated devices at 1060 and other wavelengths. Shortly, we'll have wavelengths as 1310, and there's certainly no reason why we can't move to 720 and so on. We've delivered 1653 devices as well for different applications. But having the MEMS integrated in the device allows you to have a very low cost swept source, or you can actually lock it onto a wavelength and modulate it and stay within 100 gig spacing for optical communication applications, and do 10 gig modulation as Bertolas indicated. We're also looking at going up to 25 gig and higher speeds. So next slide. One of the issues that I've heard many, many times is you can't make a high reliable VCSEL at long wavelengths. One of the challenges, as everybody has talked about, is testing these devices. To get significant amount of test data, it takes a long time. And as you can see, we've got $18,000, which is a couple of years of operation on devices of 155 devices on one group here. Plus we got another group that is actually a smaller cell. And you can see we've got over 3.5 million device hours on the device with very good fit rates and a very good confidence level. However, the biggest challenge of that to get there is to be able to test the device early on. And as everybody had indicated, testing the wafer today is a very critical part of it. However, in most applications, testing the wafer can't tell you if the device is going to work to your specifications. So you have to fully build the device and test it before you can actually have good characterization of the device and know if it's going to meet all the specifications requirement. Next slide. We're focusing on a wide variety of applications, and you can see fiber Bragg grading, gas sensing, swept sources for such as OCT, as well as LiDAR and other applications. Medical imaging is a very important part of the area where you're doing OCT, as well as some other applications the customer came up with where they're looking at doing special imaging to look at cancer cells and so on. LiDAR applications, proximity, people are using the tunable source to be able to get higher resolution in regards to LiDAR applications, optical communications. So obviously, using EMCC allows you to have a tunable link that is a very low cost solution to the overall application. OTDR, so it's another application where basically people are looking at time domain reflectometry, be able to modulate the device as well as tune it, allows you to get very good resolution. Mode hop free, be able to hold the device stable and tune it to a particular wavelength is going to enable technology that is not available today. I mean, trying to manufacture a device to a very precise wavelength is very difficult. However, you can easily tune it to a very precise wavelength and maintain it there. Today, we offer solutions and from a basically chip all the way down to the driver's device. So we can do teal cans, toasted application fiber pigtails, and tunable transceivers. The key in the near future is be able to broaden the tuning range. So the tuning range is much broader, for instance, full C-band, full L-band, and so on. But you will also see higher power as well as faster modulation bandwidth. Next slide. Our value statement basically is we can supply a swept source for different applications. We have very narrow line width. We certainly can't get as narrow as some edge emitters, but the line width is much better than most people expect. And we have multiple wavelengths, the 1654 wavelength all the way down to 1060 wavelengths. And in the very near future, we'll have 1310 devices. We do design modeling, and we basically purchase epi outside. We do have a vertically integrated fab where we're doing everything from doing wafer processing all the way up to package assembled devices. And we're working with CMs to do some of our external packaging and so on outside so we can do volume ramp up quickly. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. What can bandwidth 10 do? We can deliver cost-effective tunable swept sources for a wide variety of different applications. We need to understand what your needs are and what your applications are. What can you do for us is we can work with you to help integrate the solution as well as understand the pros and cons of VCSEL, tunable VCSEL, and how to integrate the device into your system with minimal amount of difficulty. So you need to understand what your application is and how to optimize the device for your application. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time and efforts.
And I appreciate your time. I already apologize. I'm going to finish a few minutes late, but I think it's totally worth it. The topic of tunable VCSELs is very, very important. Thank you for answering the epic question, Philip. But I want to talk to your potential customers and see what are their needs. We have one of the key companies in the world of LiDAR in the room. The company is STIC. Thank you very much for being with us, Karthik. You came to a meeting full of VCSEL manufacturers. Can you tell me your needs? And also, can you see there is some room for cooperation with bandwidth 10 of the tunable VCSEL? You know, we make this meeting live, and sometimes we hire robots to make the voiceover. And this kind of thing, we hire a very good one. Eckhart, can we try again? I think we're having some sound problems with Eckhart. Eckhart, let me come back to you and we'll hire you a better robot for the voiceover. Before that, I think there is some clear questions in the room. Greg from ficonTEC, what's on your mind?
Well, I hope you can hear me this time.
Loud and clear.
Good. What I'm picking up out of this meeting is I almost have the impression that the testing was, if you like, played second cousin to the idea of manufacturing and functional development. So I almost have the impression that out of this meeting, you could have potentially three in the future, right? One on applications, one on functional development, and another one on testing.
And one on integration on different application fields. Yeah, we need to do this, and the idea is to go into that. But Phil, I want to reshape the question from Greg onto the testing. When it comes to the tunable VCSELs, testing is complex, testing is difficult, and testing needs to be fast. How do you address it? Do you test every VCSEL individually and you tune over the whole wavelength range? Or do you have like an average in VCSEL arrays?
No, every device is tested individually on a wafer scale testing to start with. So we tune the device completely across the tuning range and test it. And then on the discrete part, after it's assembled, we also test the part individually. And yes, it does take a significant amount of time. And that today is one of the biggest bottlenecks that we have in regards to testing the device on a wafer scale, as well as testing the device on a discrete component, such as a TO package or a fiber pigtail package.
The problem with the vertical integration of VCSELs is we normally typically complex the testing processes. On that, we do have many companies in EPIC that can help with that. For example, Rod Microtech, Reinhard is with us in the room. If anybody needs some testing challenges, they need to contact Reinhard. Good to see you, Rod Microtech, here in the room. Let's go back to sick. Let's see if the robot is sick or healthy right now. Eckhart.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Thank you for
okay.
saying.
Sorry about that. It was a technical problem. The requirements we have is mainly brightness and reliability. So multi-junction is a good path, definitely. And yeah, reliability is also very, very important for us as well. So that's why I have a question to Phil regarding the activation energy he was mentioning. So did you determine and measure these values you mentioned, 0.7 electron volt and 0.35, or was it just taken from literature?
No, we've actually done devices at multiple temperatures as well as multiple drive currents and actually done the measurements. So it's a fairly significant amount of work to actually come up with those numbers.
Definitely, yes. That's why I'm asking. Okay, thank you.
When it comes to the VCSELs in the LiDAR segment, Eckhart, we've been talking about this for already a couple of years. What is the current state of the art? Are there VCSELs today integrated, or how long does it take? Or most important, what do you need from all these guys? I brought the creme de la creme. What do you need from this to make a VCSEL in the LiDAR system?
Mm-hmm. So as of today, there are VCSELs already integrated in LiDAR systems. That's yeah, state of the art. But compared to edge-emitting lasers, the VCSELs are still lower in brightness, and that's why we strive to get more higher brightness VCSELs.
Higher brightness VCSELs, not more VCSELs in arrays? Is that...
No, not more VCSELs. VCSELs array does not really make too much sense. Then we have more power, but we have also more area. So we need high power in a small area, source of area.
Do you have a wish list number in your head? Because I measure power in watts. Do you have like a number, like a magic number that I have everyone here. I even have FLIR here as well. So is there a number in your head in terms of joules or watts?
So if we could just increase the area of a single mode VCSEL, then it would be fine. But typically the light power per area is decreasing for a higher area VCSEL. Always, unfortunately. But this is not the case for multi-junction.
It is not, but yes, it is the case for VCSELs. With that request, you left it so open, I expect to make a lot of introductions for you. I would like to remind, if you want to get in touch with any of the participants today, do send me an email, jose.pozo@epictexas.com, and I will make the introduction. Philip, thank you so much for having the first morning coffee with us. I would like to finish this meeting by going back to where we started. I would like to go back to Joseph from TRUMPF. So you could do my job today. I would like to delegate giving the final remark to TRUMPF, because I'm so happy that you were here. What do you think we should do? What do you think of the VCSEL community that we have put together at EPIC? And what do you think we should do together now?
Well, I think, as I said in my last slide, thinking about the next 10 years, I think the challenge is really to find the applications that are driving the volume, that are also driving the revenues for all of us, such that we can scale and bring all the nice concept, the nice ideas, the nice invention on the road. I think that's what we're all looking for. We have seen that
there's a clear mega trend, and you started, and everybody really agreed with you. It's a clear mega trend, adding VCSEL functionality by vertical integration, and that was fascinating. That was the idea that came to the meeting, and all of you individually told me that this is the way to go, and we're going to do a lot of things to go in that direction. The integration with micro optics, we're going to push this like crazy in the next meetings. Integration with MEMS. We didn't speak to Sun Microsystems, but they were in the room. Integration with MEMS, something that we're going to push a lot. We underestimate the difficulty of the air gap in high reliability systems. We need to address this in coming meeting. The process monitoring, the epic wafer and the VCSEL post-processing, and accelerating testing and the yield calculation. Those are challenges that we need to address with this community. There is, of course, a drawback like everything. Every time you add functionality, you increase the cost and complexity, which is something that we're going to address as well. For me, this was really a truly fantastic meeting, but also was the beginning of an adventure. EPIC is here to make more and more VCSEL events, and as Greg Fee from ficonTEC said, we need to organize more VCSEL meetings on this topic. So we prepare. We're going to bring this community together and bring more and more end users coming here looking for vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. And soon we are going to start traveling again. So all I want to ask you is, it doesn't matter if it's Pfizer, if it's AstraZeneca, if it's Moderna, if it's Janssen, only one dose, get vaccinated as soon as possible, because I need to start traveling again. I would like to organize a VCSEL meeting at a key location, bring all of you together, and then go for dinner and have a very nice beer afterwards. And until that time happens, stay healthy, wash your hands and wear a mask. See you soon. Bye-bye.